If you missed our reporting from last week, Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs had some of the nation's top prospects back in Athens for another very important junior day visit, and that's what I'm going to talk about in today's video. Now, the two biggest targets who were in town last weekend, of course, were the running backs that I wrote about over on Dawg Post, Savion Hyder and Derek Cooper. I'm probably going to, get some updates on Dawg Post and make another video about those two, but I wanted to go over some prospects that you may not know a ton about, right? So new prospects to know, a lot of them were in town. I want to start talking about an in-state linebacker out of Kell High School, Braden Roose. He's one of the fastest rising, hottest prospects in the state of Georgia right now. The Dogs offered last month, and so did just about every other program in America. Now, going into the visit to Athens this past weekend, he heard the narrative that Georgia doesn't play freshmen. If you go to Georgia, you're going to have to sit. You can't compete for playing time. And I think that was part of his mindset going into the visit. But that Georgia set the record straight, and he, gave me the truth about how that visit went. Here's what he had to say. He said, quote, "I learned that they will play freshmen when they are ready. I always had a feeling that you never play as a freshman at Georgia, but sitting down and really get to talk to Coach Smart and them showing me film of freshmen playing and the snap counts that they've had, it's definitely motivating to know that if I can work and move up the depth chart, that I have a chance to play." So he's seeing at it, hey, CJ Allen played a lot as a freshman. Raylan Wilson played a lot as a freshman. Chris Cole played a lot as a freshman. So that narrative, it's totally overblown, but it's still being used by other coaches against Georgia on the recruiting trail. So Georgia told Braden Roose, hey man, that's not true. Here's the truth. You can play when you are ready. He also said that I didn't know they take academics really seriously and that they have a really good team GPA. So that's good to know. He said they will be able to work with my class schedule and football schedule. It was a great time being around all the coaches and having that one-on-one time. We were able to talk about football, so I'm excited to be up there again for the spring. After that, I'll probably narrow down the schools and look forward to official visits being set up. So I expect him to be back in the spring and back for an official visit. But dude's a tackling machine, 6'3", 210, two-way player for Kell. At linebacker, he made 105 tackles, 14 tackles for a loss, 3.5 sacks, and broke up 5 passes. At wide receiver, he caught 25 passes for 378 yards and 8 touchdowns. So again, one of the best natural athletes in Cobb County and across the state of Georgia. Definitely a guy that Georgia fans need to know about in the 2026 class. He's the number 19 prospect in the country, but I think that will probably increase more and more over time this year. So that's an in-state linebacker that Georgia fans may not know a ton about, but you can read all about him over on Dawg Post. A tight end to know, Milton High School, right? Should sound familiar. The Dogs signed 2 big-time prospects out of Milton last year, 4-star wide receiver C.J. Wiley, 4-star tight end Ethan Barbour. Grant Havlin is next up at tight end for the Milton Eagles. He earned an offer from the Dogs this past weekend. Not a surprise to our members on Dawg Post. I've been following this kid since middle school. It feels like, I've been covering him for years already. And he was just a sophomore last year at Milton, but he's a guy who's picking up offers. I expect him to have a massive junior season for the Eagles. This is what he had to say during his visit when he earned that Georgia offer. He said, "What I learned the most from my visit is that Georgia is very confident in their pro-style offense and believes they will set players up for a bright future at the next level. The message from the staff is that they're going to continue to win and continue to get players to the league. But if you aren't ready to work extremely hard, then Georgia isn't the place for you." Coach Hartley talked a lot about how the past 6 years, Georgia has had a tight end drafted into the NFL. Yeah, it's tight end university. No one does it better than Todd Hartley. And Grant Havlin, he sees that. He's an in-state kid. He knows what's up. And now he has a Georgia offer. So the next up at Milton and the next tight end in the state of Georgia that I think the Dogs are high on and Georgia fans need to know about. Moving right along, let's talk about an out-of-state guy, one of the top safety prospects in the country, Jeray Edwards out of St. Francis High School in Maryland. Now, remember last week, the Dogs added a 4-star safety, Zachariah Fort. I believe he's from California somewhere, but he plays down at IMG Academy. So they've got one on board, but Edwards is an absolute dog. 6'1", 200 pounds, flies to the football, can deliver a big hit. Here's what he had to say. It wasn't much, but here's what he had to say about his visit to Georgia. He said, "I learned about the player development and a deeper meaning of the game of football. He said they were just keeping it real with me, letting me know that I've got a special talent and I'm definitely a guy that they want to see in the red and black. So I think he's a top 40 player in the country. I thought they were in my notes right now. I didn't write it down, but top 50 player, top 5 safety prospect in the country out of Maryland. He's got all the offers. And I was told behind the scenes that Georgia really made a strong impression on him. So definitely an out-of-state guy from Maryland. That's a big-time program, St. Francis, that they have up there. They produce some of the best players in that area year after year after year. And this is the next one. So another safety out-of-state guy to keep an eye on in Georgia's class. We'll continue to talk about an out-of-state kid, Caden Harris, 6 foot, 170 pounds, out of Tennessee. He's a 4-star ranked as the number 15 cornerback prospect in the country and the number 5 prospect in Tennessee. He said, quote, "I learned how much everyone leans on each other in order to make everything come together and flow as one. They pretty much showed me how they can have an impact on my development and mold me into the player and man I want to be. They're recruiting me to play corner, but of course they have different packages and things that could vary." I asked if he's taking an official visit. He said, absolutely, the weekend of June 6th. So just a few guys to keep an eye on. You can read more about it over on Dawg Post. I keep getting updates coming in. So there are more stories that I have to write. I want to talk about this young man next, an in-state guy to keep an eye on. I wrote about all the in-state receivers that picked up a Georgia offer late in January, and Craig Dandridge Jr. is one of them. He plays out of Cambridge High School in Alpharetta, somewhat in my neck of the woods. Had a monster junior season, and you can read all about it over on Dawg Post. 1,400 yards, a bunch of touchdowns. He's got size, speed, ball skills. You turn on the film that you can watch over on Dawg Post. Easy to see why Georgia extended an offer in late January. They were able to get him on campus this week. It looks like Georgia's got some momentum. Here's what he had to say about that Georgia visit this weekend. He said, "I learned most about how every department has a whole support group to help the players. Coach Smart made it clear that they are a top program who focuses on the development of their players to be better men than players. I have spoken with the coaches and they do want to get me down for a spring practice and for an official visit, but I haven't made any plans with my family just yet." So, Metro Atlanta kid to keep an eye on. They offered a wide receiver out of Cartersville not too long ago. They offered a kid out of Houston County in January, a couple South Georgia kids, Prince Jean out of Valdosta, Jaden Dunbar, Thomas County Central. A lot of in-state wide receivers to know. And as we saw in the last year's class, with recruiting now, it's just different. With the transfer portal, NIL, there's so many factors that go into decisions. And the Georgia staff wants to keep a lot of these in-state players around, right? It's easier to hold on to in-state guys that love Georgia compared to these out-of-state guys that are coming to Georgia to try to play immediately. It may not happen. They go elsewhere. So, these coaches, they still, build the program from the recruiting trail, from the high school level. They go add pieces from the portal, but the foundation of the Georgia program comes from high school recruitment. And that's why this stuff still matters, right? I know a lot of people, they don't want to focus on recruiting. They don't want to follow recruiting anymore. They don't think it matters. It absolutely matters. I'm not sure where that narrative came from. I mean, I guess I understand it, but no, it is still crazy important. And all the leaders on Georgia's team, year after year after year, are guys that they signed out of high school, right? Every once in a while, you'll have a Tyke Smith or a Trevor Etienne come in, transfer in, and become, take on a leadership role. But for the most part, the guys they sign out of high school, the best of the best, each class turn into leaders. So recruiting still matters. And there's a lot of in-state guys that earned an offer from the Dogs that I think Georgia fans need to keep a close eye on. So a lot going on in the 26th class. We've got updates on official visitors. One of the best prospects in the country, the number 1 ranked athlete in the country, is going to be in Georgia soon, next month. There's an update on Dawg Post that you can read there. But yeah, for the bigger names, still working on some updates. I want to get them over on Dawg Post. But just want to come on here and share, names of a few guys that you may not know a ton about, but my job is to make sure y'all, the viewers on this channel, the most knowledgeable Georgia fans in the world are watching these videos. I want to make sure y'all know even, the mid-level guys that, may not have 5 stars next to their name, but are higher on Georgia's board than people realize, right? So offers are still going out. Georgia's, still adding guys and mixing up the recruiting board. They're still watching film, still trying to find guys, but no doubt about it, this past weekend was giant, not only for the running back position in the future there, but a lot of in-state guys, a lot of out-of-state guys learning more about the program and what Georgia has to offer. So we've got several recruiting updates over on Dawg Post right now, so I want to make sure y'all are going over to the site to check all that out. But yeah, the main focus on this video, Braden Roose out of Kell High School saying, hey, I learned that, the narrative is done. It's crushed. You can absolutely play early at Georgia. You just have to be ready. He liked that, and I think he is a guy, particularly that Georgia fans need to keep a close eye on. He's one of the top linebackers, not only in Georgia, but across the South. And you can read more about him and all of these other players over on Dawg Post. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. I'll see you over on the website.